Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then please do me a favour and hit that subscribe button. Free agency the last few days has been about as boring as my backdrop right now. Any of my subscribers would know that I have just moved. If you saw my previous video, I was doing that pretty much off of a cardboard box, makeshift. I finally have somewhere to put my mic. I finally got my better camera, for better or for worse. So I'm a little bit more prepared for these, but my setup should improve as the weeks go on and as I kind of get more settled into the new place. But as I said, not really much going on in the NFL free agency so far. It's not just the Browns; it's kind of been dried up across the league the last few days and even week. But we do have some stuff to talk about, some Browns rumours. Couple of signings as well, including one pretty much about 20 minutes ago as of recording. So let's not waste any time and get straight into it. We'll start with Carson Wentz. A lot of talk about Carson Wentz the last few days. Lots of rumours going around that both parties are interested in a potential move. Mary Kay Cabot reported that there's definitely mutual interest in bringing in Wentz as a bridge quarterback. If the Browns were unable to sign Russell Wilson. So first and foremost, I find it interesting that Russell Wilson's name keeps getting mentioned. I've said it before, whilst I know a lot of people might not agree with, Mary Kay's takes, she is one of the most dialed in beat reporters, that the Browns have, and arguably has the most direct communication on what the team is doing than anybody else. So the fact that she's once again brought up Russell Wilson does make me think that they are clearly interested, at least, and actively trying to sign him at best. But as for Carson Wentz, I'll be honest, this is a move that would be pretty underwhelming, even from a bridge quarterback standpoint. If you saw my free agent quarterback targets video, then this is a move that I was not interested in making. I just flat out don't think Wentz is good anymore. You can argue, how good he even was at his best, but he was in an MVP race that 1 year before he got injured. But as a backup, he's started 2 games in 2 years and didn't look great in either. And when we last saw him as an actual starter for Washington, he was even worse. People will argue that he makes sense if the Browns were going to draft a quarterback at 2 because, he won't be put off by it. Like it's been reported that a Kirk Cousins or Russell Wilson might be, having a quarterback drafted number 2 come in and sit right behind them. But to be honest, he probably get beaten out by whoever they draft at 2, and then you have a rookie starting day 1 when you actively try to avoid that happening. You don't need to shoot low at bridge quarterback because you plan on drafting a quarterback high. I'd rather sign Joe Flacco than Carson Wentz, to be honest. I do not want to endure Carson Wentz starting any football games for the Browns next year. As I said in my last video, I think it's between Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins for the Browns, and as much as I hate to admit it, that's probably what I would also be looking to do. Arguably the best options out there in the free agent quarterback market, or trade in, Kirk Cousins' case, because the Falcons GM would rather just burn money than admit that he's made a mistake. But I'm still in the camp of, bringing in a veteran bridge option at quarterback and drafting a guy. That's kind of been where I've been at all off-season, preferably day 2. And, we'll talk more about that leading up to the draft. But for now, just go and get a decent bridge quarterback and, then we can think about the draft. But hopefully not Carson Wentz. Definitely not someone that I would be interested bringing in. And then to the breaking news almost. I think it's been about half an hour now. Does that still count as breaking news? But the Cleveland Browns have signed former Bears offensive guard Teven Jenkins. This has literally just been announced, so all we know that it's a 1-year deal. We don't know what the amount of money the contract is. Jenkins was a former second-round pick in 2021 and was one of the free agent guard targets that I had as potential starters if the Browns were to move on from a Wyatt Teller or Joel Bitonio retired. Whilst this does make you wonder what the Browns' plan at guard is, it is something to think about. Bitonio has confirmed he's playing next year, and I believe the Browns have paid Wyatt Teller's roster bonus, so it would be surprising if they were to cut him after doing so. So if this is a move that they've made as a depth piece and the cost is as such, then this would be a really good deal. Teven Jenkins has dealt with some lingering injuries in his young career so far, but when he's healthy, he's a pretty good offensive lineman, and he's still fairly young at just 27 years old. I am 27, so don't be making jokes about how that isn't young, okay? It's young. It's fairly young still for an offensive lineman, okay? All right, no jokes about that not being young. We're still clinging on to it. But, he is coming off one of his best seasons. He started a career-high 14 games for the Bears last year. His overall PFF grade ranked 18th out of 135 guards last season. He ranked 15th in pass blocking and 20th in run blocking. And since 2022, he has a PFF grade of 80.7, which actually ranks 5th amongst all guards in that time. So pretty decent grades from PFF. When he is healthy, he is a starting caliber guard in the NFL. The plan might be for him to replace Bitonio next year, but it's only a 1-year deal. Are they planning on playing him at tackle? I know there's been some murmurs that he wants to make the switch. He certainly does have the frame to play tackle at 6'6", but regardless, I've said all off-season that the Browns need to overhaul their offensive line and make serious investment into it. So, so far they've brought in Cornelius Lucas and Teven Jenkins, which are massive upgrades over the players they've lost in Jed Wills and James Hudson. And Jed Wills is still out there. Please don't bring him back. But so, I am really happy with this move. I do think it's a good move. If the Browns are going to return all 5 starters on the offensive line, apart from Jed Wills, so all 4, they have to make damn sure that, they have adequate depth pieces due to the revolving door at offensive line for the Browns the last few years. And, I think this and the Lucas move are big steps in the right direction. The Browns are yet to make any flashy signings, but, they have made some decent under-the-radar moves that I only expect them to add to. It can feel like everyone is signing guys, as I said, apart from the Browns, but it has been relatively quiet, the last few days around the league in regards to free agency as a whole. There's still plenty of great options out there, at multiple positions. Whilst I would, of course, rather the Browns made a move at quarterback sooner rather than later, I do understand that, this stuff can take time. So buckle in, bring some snacks, because we could be sat here next week and the Browns still haven't signed a quarterback, but hopefully not. Hopefully that's something we get to talk about, as I said, sooner rather than later. And going back to the offensive line, I do just need to give a shout out to Jack Conklin. Jack Conklin renegotiated his contract. The renegotiation creates $12 million in cap space this year, and will make him a free agent in 2026 instead of 2027. Shout out to him. This is something he didn't have to do. A lot of people get confused between the whole restructure, renegotiated kind of differences in contracts. This is not a restructure. This is an actual renegotiated deal that both parties have to agree upon. He is taking technically less money, but it means that he can be a free agent next year. So if he has a good year, he can go and get himself maybe one last payday while the Browns obviously get out of some money now, get to push a bit of it down the line, and it gives them more flexibility this year and going forward. So, I think it's in the best interest of both parties. But as I said, it's something Jack didn't have to do. Shout out to him. He certainly helped the Browns, by giving them more money to spend this offseason and more financial flexibility moving forward. So, shout out to Jack Conklin, and hopefully get a big year out of him, healthy year out of him, and as I said, he can have a good season and maybe go earn himself one last paycheck. Finally, the Browns have signed the returner. They have signed return specialist DeAndre Carter to just a one-year deal worth around $800,000. He went undrafted in 2015 and is now on his 12th NFL team, so over a third of the entire league. Which is quite impressive, especially for a guy that went undrafted. Say what you want about hopping teams, to stay in the NFL for that long. Fair play to him. He has over 1,400 punt return yards in his career and over 3,100 kick return yards. He does only have one career return touchdown, but it was a 101-yard kick return. So he's not a Devin Hester or Josh Cribbs, but then again, not many players are. But he is a decent returner who does get extra yards consistently. He averages just under 10 yards per punt return on his career and over 23 yards per kick return. They are more than decent averages for a guy with nearly 300 kick and punt returns. He's getting on a little bit in age at 31, but he is coming off, one of the best seasons in his career with over 400 kick return yards, at over 30 yards per kick return, which is pretty impressive. The Browns, have struggled to get 5 yards on kick returns, so that is a massive upgrade. Look, this move doesn't exactly move the needle. As I said, there's not that much going on. This isn't a big flashy signing. I get that. But for a team that has been legitimately cursed at return specialists pretty much since Josh Cribbs left, it is a decent move to try and turn that around. The Browns tried to end the curse with Jakeem Grant, but that only just felt like it furthered the curse with him getting, seriously injured in back-to-back years that he was here. I mean, shit, they even brought in Naheem Hines last year to try and have a returner, and immediately he got hurt and was out for the season. So, don't get me wrong, I'm expecting Carter to get injured, as this is just kind of how it's been. But touch wood that this is finally a guy we can have fielding kicks, returns, and punts as well without feeling nervous about it. We've seen starting receivers and running backs have to go and return kicks just because we couldn't find someone to even catch the ball securely. I mean, there was a point where DPJ was our number one receiver in a game and still having to catch punts. It is genuinely insane, how bad the Browns have been on returns the last few years. So as I said, hopefully Carter can come in and, secure that role for 2025. And if he doesn't, well, the Browns curse continues as expected at this point. But it doesn't really matter because, he's literally making less money than guys on veteran minimum contracts. You could cut him and not even notice the lost money in your bank account. So it is low risk and somewhat higher reward, type of signing that hopefully works out because, as I said, I am so sick of feeling nervous every time someone is back there to return kicks for the Browns, as it's been the last few years. But that'll do it for me today, guys. As I said, there's not too much going on in the world of NFL free agency, especially with the Browns. Thankfully, they actually had a sign-in, as I said, half an hour ago, or whatever it was now, with Teven Jenkins. Otherwise, this video might have only been about 8 minutes long. So, keep the signings coming, Browns. Hopefully get a quarterback signed before, next weekend. Hopefully over this weekend, we start to get a bit more clarity on who that might be. And we can obviously then go forward with, quarterback options in regards to the draft, as well as other positions as well. But as I said, that would do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you do enjoy my content, then please drop this video a like, hit the subscribe button. It's free, but it really, really helps out my channel. You can also check the links in the description to see where you can follow and interact with me on social media. As I always say, I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans, and even if I only get to talk to one fan a day, I'm happy because I'm talking Browns football with the best fan base in the world. Thanks again for watching, guys. Have an amazing weekend. Have an amazing Friday. But most importantly, go Browns.